In 2023, Russia surpassed Saudi Arabia as the top supplier of crude oil to China, the world's largest oil importer. This remarkable shift was driven by several factors, including the ongoing Western sanctions on Russia, the rising demand for oil in China, and the strategic partnership between Moscow and Beijing. This is seen as a remarkable achievement for Russia, which has been facing economic and political challenges due to its involvement in the Ukraine conflict. How did Russia manage to overtake Saudi Arabia, which has been China's main oil partner for decades? The Western sanctions on Russia, imposed since 2014 over its annexation of Crimea and involvement in the Ukraine conflict, have severely limited its access to Western capital and technology. This has forced Russia to diversify its markets and seek new sources of income and investment. China, on the other hand, has been facing increasing pressure from the US and its allies over its human rights violations, trade practices, and territorial disputes in the South China Sea. This has prompted China to reduce its dependence on Western markets and suppliers and seek closer ties with countries that share its interests and values. One of the areas where Russia and China have found common ground is energy. Both countries are major energy producers and consumers and have a mutual interest in ensuring energy security and stability. Russia has abundant oil and gas reserves, but needs to find new outlets for its exports, especially in Asia. China has a growing appetite for oil and gas, but faces challenges in securing its supplies from the Middle East and Africa, where it competes with other importers and faces political risks. By increasing their energy cooperation, Russia and China can benefit from each other's strengths and mitigate their weaknesses. One of the main outcomes of this cooperation is that Russia has become China's top crude oil supplier in 2023, overtaking Saudi Arabia, which had held that position for several years. According to Chinese customs data, Russia exported a record 107 million metric tons of crude oil to China in 2023, which is equivalent to 2.1 million barrels per day BPD. This amount is significantly higher than the crude oil exports of other major oil exporters such as Saudi Arabia and Iraq. China's imports of crude oil from Saudi Arabia, which used to be its top supplier, declined by 1.8% to 85.96 million tons in the past year. This was due to the competitive pricing of Russian oil, which gained more market share in the Chinese market. The gap between the two suppliers is expected to widen further in 2024 as Russia plans to increase its pipeline capacity to China. The reasons for Russia's rise as China's top crude oil supplier are manifold. First, Russia offers competitive prices and flexible terms to its Chinese customers, such as discounts, swaps, and long-term contracts. Second, Russia has invested heavily in expanding its pipeline network to China, which reduces transportation costs and risks and enhances reliability and security. Third, Russia has diversified its crude oil grades to suit China's refining needs, such as offering more light and sweet crude oil that is easier to process and produces less emissions. Fourth, Russia has aligned its interests with China on regional and global issues, such as supporting China's Belt and Road Initiative (BRI), opposing U.S. sanctions on Iran, and backing China's claims in the South China Sea. The implications of Russia's ascent as China's top crude oil supplier are significant for both countries and the rest of the world. For Russia, it means that it can reduce its reliance on European markets, where it faces political hurdles and environmental regulations. It also means that it can increase its leverage over Europe by threatening to cut off or divert its oil supplies. For China, it means that it can diversify its oil sources away from the Middle East and Africa, where it faces instability and competition. It also means that it can strengthen its strategic partnership with Russia by supporting its interests and ambitions. For the West, especially the US, it means that it faces a formidable challenge from a rising alliance of two rival powers that have a common interest in undermining its influence and dominance. It also means that it has to rethink its strategy of isolating and sanctioning Russia, which may have backfired by pushing it closer to China. Moreover, it means that it has to deal with a more complex and dynamic global energy market, where supply and demand are influenced by multiple factors beyond its control. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and be sure to take a moment to subscribe.